Okay, thanks to everyone that joined. Good morning. Welcome to the October Expedia 2015 Monterey County webinar. Um, my name is Michael. I think I've met people on the line so far. The Associate Market Manager for the Central Coast, and wanted to just kind of kick it off and talk a little bit about the trends that I've been seeing in the Monterey market. And just to kind of clarify, by the Monterey market, what I mean is basically Monterey County. The Monterey market, as Expedia classifies it, includes Pacific Grove, Salinas, Seaside, Watsonville, Marina, and I think I covered all the territories that are there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start the presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to just jump in and ask. I don't know if you're familiar with BlueJeans, but you can just unclick the microphone there on the right-hand side, or press the space bar and ask your question. Okay, would someone mind letting me know if they can see the PowerPoint presentation on my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much for letting me know. Okay, again, welcome. This is the October 2015 Monterey County webinar, and we'll just kick it off. So what I'm going to start with is starting with some trends that I'm seeing over the last 12 months, and then we'll kind of look a little bit forward going after that. So over the last 12 months, what we're seeing in the Monterey market here is a really nice, steady room night growth year over year. So as you can see, over the last 12 months, just every month has had, nearly every month has had double-digit room night growth. You can see from October 2014 until September, which actually just actualized, we see anywhere between 9% room night growth and 35% room night growth year over year. So really nice, solid numbers in the market. And the orange line, as you can see, is the year-over-year average daily rate, or ADR, and that seems to be coming in kind of around the 4 to 6% range in average year over year. So really healthy room night growth coupled with ADR growth results in some nice RevPAR numbers for the Monterey market. What I've done is I've pulled in some of the competing markets to the Monterey market. So I pulled in Carmel, I pulled in Santa Cruz, and I just wanted to kind of show you some of the ADR trends we're seeing over the last year for those markets compared to Monterey. So the green line is Carmel, and you'll have to bear with me. I'm not great with colors, so forgive me if I say the wrong one. But the yellow line is Monterey, and the blue line is Santa Cruz. You can see that Monterey and Santa Cruz are fairly consistent with each other as far as month over month average daily rate trends, follow a similar kind of trajectory over the last 12 months. Santa Cruz seemed to overtake Monterey a little bit starting in the summer, but has kind of flattened out a little bit consistently with Monterey. Carmel follows the same kind of trajectory as the other two markets. However, as you could imagine, the ADRs are a little bit higher on average. When we pull in the three different markets, I wanted to show a little bit of the share shifts we've seen in the last year. So these are booking trends, and coupled with average daily rate year over year growth trends. So we've actually seen a 3.8% decrease in share that's gone to a little bit to Carmel, but mostly to Santa Cruz over the last. This doesn't mean that Monterey isn't growing, as we've seen it is growing, but we're seeing a little bit more share of Expedia bookings going to Santa Cruz. We'll get into that as we go a little bit further, but it's just kind of interesting to see where of the total 100% pie that's coming into the Santa Cruz, Monterey, and Carmel areas, it seems to be shifting a little bit towards Santa Cruz within the last year. And as you can see, that's actually at a pretty substantial year-over-year ADR increase in Santa Cruz. We're seeing a little bit higher than 10% ADR increase. And the ADR increase in Monterey is kind of in that 6% range. So pretty interesting shift there. I've spoken with a lot of partners recently that have noticed a lot of international trends. The trend seems to be coming up more and more. is the emergence of the Asian market in Monterey. And this graph here kind of demonstrates that. What you can see is these bars, similar to the last slide, represent the share of business from international to domestic. So on the far left, you see APAC, which is Asia Pacific. Second to the left is EMEA, which is Europe and the Middle East. Next over is LATAM, which is Latin America. On the far right is North America. So of all the bookings of the total pie, the share has shifted in the last year towards a little bit more towards Asia Pacific. It's up 0.8%. Not a huge increase year over year, but definitely some share shift. And I think a lot of that partners are seeing is the emergence of the Chinese market as a more major international market that's coming and visiting Monterey. You can see that there is a healthy ADR increase too in the APAC market, and a slightly higher ADR increase for North American travelers. The next thing I wanted to point out was I think it's interesting to see how ADRs fluctuate as the time period elapses from initial when the inventory is out on the market to actually the month of arrival. So basically what this chart shows is that 6 months prior to arrival, how does the ADR fluctuate for the same reservation as the reservations that are up to the month of arrival. So what we can see here is July and September were fairly flat between 6 months to arrival and the month of arrival. So basically what we can infer is that hotels are pricing themselves fairly consistently 6 months out to the month of arrival, and guests are receptive to paying kind of the same amount 6 months out to a month of arrival. I'd actually like to see this chart slanted a little bit from left to right, raising up kind of an upward slope as we get to the month of arrival, as I'm sure you would too. Kind of incentivizing a little bit longer booking window in order to get some of the business on the books, build your base, and as we get closer to the month of arrival, being able to actually yield your rates up a little bit. I know it's easier said than done, but what we see is we actually see the opposite trend for August, and I think that makes a lot of sense. We see that the ADR in August, 6 months out, was a lot higher than what we saw at the month of arrival. I think what this really comes from is Concord-driven reservations. We see hotels dangling a pretty aggressive ADR 6 months out, and when the ADRs aren't quite met and the bookings don't come into their expectations, they're having to drop rate at the month of arrival to make sure that they're actually filling rooms. It's interesting to see at the month of arrival, August, July, and September are really right around the same average daily rate, which indicates to me that even though there's the high compression period in August, we're still seeing similar rates kind of overall between the 3 months at the month of arrival. So some interesting takeaways. So we just kind of covered the past few months, past 12 months or so, and now we're going to be looking forward a little bit to the pace that we see in the market. I'd love to hear if you're seeing different things in the market as far as the next 6 months go. But what we're seeing on the Expedia side is we're still seeing pretty healthy growth, which is great to see. October is growing at a 33% room night pace year over year, which is excellent. November, very solid as well. As you can see, the real standout is February. And as we all know, we have some pretty large events going on in February, not the least of which is the Super Bowl happening in Santa Clara, February 7th. As well, we have the weekend of doom, I like to call it, where we have President's Day, the AT&T National Pro-Am, and Valentine's Day right around the same time. I really think that the organizer of these events should have checked with the hotel community in the Monterey market before they put all these weekends or these events on the same weekend. But hopefully we can get them spread out a little bit more going forward. But I think that that kind of explains the shift, the tremendous growth we're seeing in February so far at 156% year over year to last year. I think I wanted to call out one thing about the Super Bowl. I know that the Super Bowl is going on in Santa Clara, and most of the hotels that are affected by that demand are up in the Bay Area, but I think I've been talking to hoteliers down in Monterey and Salinas and Seaside, etc., and they're feeling a little bit of the demand as well. What I've learned recently is that the Super Bowl organizing committee has actually worked with the Monterey CVB, and they've actually worked to drive some leisure business down to Monterey, the Monterey market, the week before the Super Bowl. So I think that while it's pretty exciting to hear that this is a really high demand event and it's bringing some good business down to the Monterey market before the Super Bowl, I think one thing to keep in mind is that people will be spending on average about $5,000 for the weekend of the Super Bowl, including tickets, airfare, hotel, etc. And so I think it's important to keep rates, to not push rate too hard over February, just to make sure that you have availability out there, though, because rates pushed too high will probably disincentivize people from coming down to Monterey, and maybe they'll come a little bit later instead of coming the weekend before. So just some things to keep in mind. Moving forward, we see room night pace for Monterey is kind of right in the middle between Carmel and Santa Cruz. As we've seen before, Santa Cruz has had pretty tremendous growth. The share has shifted a little bit away from Monterey into Santa Cruz. We're seeing a pretty healthy spike starting at December, January, February, March. And Monterey is just kind of right in the middle. We see really nice room night pace starting in January and really kind of exploding in February. And I think a lot of the reason that February is so strong for Santa Cruz is because it's a little bit closer market to Levi's Stadium and where the Super Bowl festivities are happening. People that want to stay a little bit outside of the craziness of the Bay Area can stay in Santa Cruz. But I think another reason for the tremendous growth in Santa Cruz we're seeing is ADRs that are not quite so aggressive as some of the Central Coast. So I wanted to share you some booking window trends I'm seeing for the Monterey market. What we're seeing on the Expedia side is we've got anywhere from 0, which is the same day on the far left of the top graph. So what percent share of all bookings that come in are booked the same day? That's 14% that come in the same day. The opposite is on the far right of the graph. 7% of our reservations are coming in 91 plus days. So a really nice actual dispersion for the Monterey market. 14% is the same day, 20% within 1 to 3 days, but we're seeing a healthy amount of reservations that are coming 15 days, 21 days, 31 days out. And as you can see, the average daily rate actually slopes upward the further the booking window actually is. If anything, I'd like to see maybe the inverse of that ADR trend. I'd like to see us incentivizing guests to book a little bit further out. In that way, we can build base. You have a better understanding of demand. You can staff your properties more effectively, and then you can yield up your rates as the arrival date increases. Just some takeaways that I'm seeing. On the bottom graph, we're seeing year-over-year room nights, fairly consistent year-over-year across all of the different segments. The biggest growth that we're seeing, which is really nice to see, is the far right of the graph is 27% year-over-year increase in the 91 plus day bucket. So it's a really healthy business because we know that the further out a customer books, it tends to be a little bit longer length of stay because they're booking their flights as well. Their lower rate of cancellation because it's a more kind of premeditated trip, etc. Moving from booking window to length of stay trends, we're still seeing in the Monterey market about 45% of reservations staying 1 day, 31% 2 days, 12% 3 days. Again, there are ways to incentivize longer length of stays. I think putting deals out there in the market for international travelers will encourage longer length of stays. If you work at all and you have a package, kind of a package deal, which incentivizes people to book an airline ticket or a rental car and their hotel at the same time, that can encourage a longer length of stay. As well, just making sure you have inventory available 15 plus days out, 91 plus days out, making sure that your average daily rate is not pushed too aggressively that far out, and you have the inventory available, will help encourage a longer length of stay. So moving into a little more granular level from the Monterey market, these are the submarkets. So we have at the very bottom, you have Monterey, Salinas, Pacific Grove, Seaside, and Marina. So what we do is we see a little bit of share shift year over year. Monterey stayed fairly consistent. Salinas has seen some really nice growth. You can see that Salinas, they have an average daily rate increase year over year of around 8%. You can see that from the orange line. That's led to a 0.7% increase in share. It's been stolen primarily away from Pacific Grove and Seaside. Also, Marina has seen a really nice share increase as well with flat ADRs year over year. So I would just caution the Pacific Grove properties to watch ADRs as they seem to be rising pretty aggressively year over year. It seems to be kind of one of the main reasons for the decrease in shift, the shift that's the share shift. Excuse me. Wanted to also highlight where we're seeing the most international business and the biggest points of sale. Year over year, we're seeing consistently about 15% of the business in the Monterey market that comes internationally. And the top booking points of sale you can see are below. The United Kingdom is still the lion's share of international bookings at 15%. It's room night growth of 23%. And it really kind of holds the best average daily rate at $182. So definitely a very profitable segment. If you're looking to capture some more of that business, just making sure that you have an international deal out there that targets UK and some other points of sale, that's something I can definitely help you set up. Canada is the next largest share at 14%, followed by Germany, Brazil, Sweden, China. If you look all the way down to China, you can see it only represents 6% of our international share. However, if you look just to the right of that, it has 96% room night growth. So although China is really the sixth biggest point of sale for international customers coming to the Monterey market, it's growing at a tremendous pace, much faster than even the next closest market, which is Brazil at 47%. So I think we're going to see the percentage share of China really rapidly increasing in the next few years. A really quick highlight of our mobile channels. So by mobile, what I mean is the reservations that are booked on phones or tablets. So typically, I think of customers that book on their phones or tablets as customers that are just kind of on the whim, driving through Monterey, maybe coming down from San Francisco or driving up from LA, looking for a place to stay for the night. Usually we see this more with a kind of a closer to the day of arrival booking, usually within 0 to 3 days. We can see that the Monterey submarket has the lion's share of mobile bookings, and that Seaside, Salinas, Marina, Pacific Grove are steadily increasing year over year. You can see that from the bottom graph. They're actually outpacing Monterey as far as mobile bookings go. Mobile is a really nice category for you to drive last-minute room nights. Making sure that you have a compelling mobile deal out there, maybe within 1 to 3 days of the arrival date, will definitely help you fill last-minute rooms. And what it does is having a mobile deal out there highlights your listing on the mobile app. I would also suggest, in addition to putting a deal out there, you can just make sure that your content is as updated as possible, making sure that your pictures are accurate and you have lots of pictures and accurate content in your listing. If you're wondering how to do that, if you'd like to update your content, I'd be happy to go through that with you in your listing. Can everyone hear me? I'm so sorry about that. I think we had some internet difficulties here in the office. I will keep going through the presentation. I hope you all can hear me. If not, I'll just make sure to email this out afterward. So what we're seeing as far as a share percentage of mobile bookings, we see 30% of our mobile bookings on the same day. However, as you can see, 70% of the bookings are made between 1 and 91 days. So there is opportunity to drive longer length of stay or longer booking window business through the mobile channel as well. So I want to get into a little bit outside of Expedia's numbers. What I have here on the screen is a slide from a recent presentation that Expedia was invited to with PKF Consulting, which is a leader for hospitality consulting. And basically, what they did is they presented on a national market forecast for the next 3 or 4 years. So I wanted to share some of this data with you. Basically, in a nutshell, PKF is predicting future RevPAR growth, which is really nice to see over the next few years. They're not really expecting us to go back into a recession anytime soon. They're seeing growth over the next few years, although the growth does diminish each of the next few years. We've had a really strong 2014, 2015, as I'm sure you've seen, and it's nice to see that trend continuing. So at the very top, what you can see is 2015 so far is looking about a 66% occupancy level on a national market. This is not Monterey. This is for the national market. Next year will be kind of the peak occupancy at 66.1%. PKF predicts. The year after that, in 2017, they predict it'll go to 65.6%, then to 64.9%. So still great occupancy numbers. The long run average for occupancy in the States since 2010 is 62%, so far exceeding that over the next few years. If you can look down at the RevPAR level, which is the second to last row, you can see that RevPAR is also steadily increasing year over year, which is really nice to see. RevPAR, for any of those who haven't dealt with the term before, is revenue per available room. And we can see that the percent change is 7.2% in 2015, which is really tremendous RevPAR growth, followed by 2016 at 6.3%, 2017 at 5.5%. So really healthy growth, although the growth rate is declining. This is a bit of a confusing slide, so I apologize, but I just kind of wanted to show where PKF believes that the U.S. is in the hotel life cycle. So as we know that there are peaks and valleys in the valley that we can see kind of in the middle of the screen, the dip is really that 2009, 2008 area where the hotel industry went into recession and the general world economy was in recession. Right now, they can see we're in an advanced stage of recovery in the yellow circle, and so they're predicting it's really still some good times ahead. Shifting over to Expedia Partner Central, I wanted to share some new features that we have that I'm not sure if you've seen yet. As soon as you log into Expedia Partner Central, you're faced with the screen on the left-hand side. I know it's a little hard to see, so I apologize about that, but this is your homepage in Expedia Partner Central right now, and it has some pretty interesting information as far as understanding the performance of your hotel versus your competitive set. Now, to determine your competitive set, as you can see on the bottom right, which we've listed here at the Market Watch section, we pull in 5 properties besides yours, and these properties are within 10 or so miles of your property and have an average daily rate of plus or minus 10% of your property's average daily rate. So what we've done is we compared your property to the other properties, your competitive set, in a few key metrics. And the one I really wanted to call out is conversion. That's the percentage right there, 4.54% for this example hotel. And what that means is how many times people are actually clicking on your listing in Expedia, how many times of 100 are they actually booking your hotel. So out of every 100 times that someone's clicking on this example property, they're actually booking the property 4.54 times. The market average conversion number that I tend to see is around 7%. So if you're below 7%, we should definitely talk about increasing your conversion. If you're above 10%, congratulations. You're driving strong business to your property. still there are always ways to increase your conversion and make sure you're maximizing the reservations that people are booking on Expedia. What's nice is that if you look at the top part of the screen, conversion is the tab on the far right side. You can also see bookings, property views, and in-search results. And what those different tabs will do when you click on them is it'll rank your hotel 1 to 6. So if you're ranked number 1, as you can see the hotel is below at the very bottom, that means you performed the best of your competitive set in that particular metric. So it's a great way to kind of keep in touch and keep a pulse on how you're performing versus your competitors. If you're not happy with the particular your ranking in a particular metric, especially conversion, you're not at number 1 or you're not happy with your position, what you can do is there are a few options for each metric, and you can click on the right and you can see view details. And what that'll do is it'll give you options to increase conversion. One of the ways we like to increase conversion is really improving a hotel's content, making sure that they have the most up-to-date pictures as possible, the most clear pictures as possible, the most accurate information as far as what's around their property, what their property provides, and then also making sure that your rates and availability are as healthy and competitive as possible. If you have any questions on those metrics for your property, I'd love to speak with you further, so feel free to reach out to me. Another thing that's new at Expedia is the auto renewal option. This does not apply to branded hotels. This is only for independent hotels. Basically, what the auto renewal option is all about is what we're doing is we're offering the opportunity to just auto load your inventory at the same amount and at the same rate as the year before for 1 year from now. So, for example, you'll receive an email from Expedia that says we're about to auto renew your inventory for for November 2016. Feel free to opt out of this if you'd like, but if we don't hear from you, we'll just auto renew your inventory in the same amount as the year before at the same rate, and so it takes care of that job for you. If you have any questions on this process, I have a link at the bottom of the page right here that you can click on, and it'll give you some more information for opting out of the auto renewal process. I wanted to also bring to your attention the campaign that's currently running for Expedia. We see a bit of a dip in occupancy in the winter months between November and March in the Monterey market. We see that the market runs roughly 59% occupancy during that time, so definitely the slower period. What we've done with this campaign, the Fall into Holidays campaign, is we've worked with our merchandising team to bring more attention to the Monterey market. What we're asking for is a minimum discount of 15%, and you can run the campaign any days you'd like during November to March. You can run it any day of the week you'd like. What I suggest is tiering the discount, so really encouraging longer length of stays by maybe offering a 15% discount for 2 nights and a 20% discount for 3 nights, etc. We can really get creative here, offer it to our members only to make sure that we're remaining in parity with your other channels. So if you have any questions about this, I'd love to talk to you further. We also have an ambassador program that's going on right now where basically we incentivize you to refer hotels to Expedia. So if you refer a property to Expedia that's not working with us currently, we give you a travel voucher for yourself. As you can see the different rates on the left-hand side. So if you know a property that's not working with us that would like to work with us, feel free to shoot me an email and we'll get you set up with a travel voucher. The last thing I wanted to show you is kind of a complicated screen. I apologize about that, but I wanted to give you up-to-date resource for who to contact at Expedia. So 3 different sections here are self-service support, operational report, and strategic support. So for self-service, this shows you Expedia Partner Central. It shows you all the things you can do. For operational support, if you have inventory or rate questions, you want to close out some dates, you want to talk about promotions, you have minimum, maximum length of stay changes, etc., etc. Feel free to call Hotel Help. The number is right there in the middle of the screen, or you can email them at hotelhelp@expedia.com. They're around 24/7 and can definitely help you. If you want to have a strategic conversation, please reach out to me My email is right there, and also make sure to include my phone number on the email when I send out this deck. If you can't reach me, I'm usually in market Tuesday through Thursday. I would recommend for strategic support emailing our market associate team at norcalarea@expedia.com. Their email address is right there, and they can help when I'm a little bit when I'm in meetings, and maybe we'll get back to you as quickly as they can. So you made it through the October webinar. Really appreciate your patience and your attention, and wanted to open up the floor to any questions that anyone has. Well, if there are no questions, please feel free to email me if you think of something later on. I'll be sending out the deck just so you have the information handy. My email address, I'll send it to you, and I'll have my phone number there as well. And thanks again for joining. Everyone have a great day.